Well guys, we are officially in February now, as from the time that I upload this video, it will be on February 1st, which means we are in Pokemon month. As for the last couple of years, you guys know we pretty much always get a Pokemon Presents presentation right on Pokemon Day, February 27th at the end of the month. And these are pretty big announcements because this is where we find out what's going to be the brand new Pokemon game that's going to be coming out this year, some other projects that they're working on, updates to things, so it's a pretty exciting time. And this year especially is also the 30-year anniversary of the entire Pokemon franchise since it started in 1996, so it's definitely going to be a big deal. And so I'm sure everyone is wondering what are going to be the brand new Pokemon games that are going to be coming out in 2026. And I think with all the speculation and discussions that we've had, a lot of you were also able to figure out that what better way to celebrate the 30-year anniversary of the Pokemon franchise than to introduce a completely brand new generation with new starters, new Pokemon, a new region, and new characters. It just makes perfect sense. And this is actually exactly what the Pokemon Company did 10 years ago in 2016 to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Pokemon, as they introduced Pokemon Sun and Moon, which was also another brand new generation at the time. So I feel like everybody was expecting Gen 10, but what we weren't expecting was for so much information about Gen 10 to be put out there, and this is all coming from that massive GameFreak tera hack that had occurred a while ago. As some of you might be able to recall, that massive GameFreak hack where so many leaked internal documents were coming out. We learned about like so many things like about the development of older Pokemon games, concept arts for characters and Pokemon, and a lot of like internal documents. And that also included stuff with future Pokemon games, so this was also where we learned about like all of the brand new Mega Evolutions that are going to be inside of Pokemon Legends EA, and all of those ended up leaking and turned out to be true, and so this also included information about Generation 10. Now the thing is, all of this Gen 10 info is pretty much scattered all around the internet with different accounts talking about it, images being posted here, videos being posted somewhere else, and it's pretty much hard to kind of keep track of everything. So that's what I'm going to be doing inside of this video, is really just compiling every bit of information that we know about the Generation 10 Pokemon games so that you can have it right here in this one video for you to watch and know everything that there is to know about the upcoming brand new 2026 Pokemon games. And so of course this video is going to have spoilers about the new stuff that's going to be in the Gen 10 Pokemon games, so if you do want to be truly surprised at what these games are going to be like and what they're going to look like, then don't watch this video and you can just wait a couple weeks, as Pokemon Day is going to be just around the corner, and at the end of the month when we have that Pokemon Presents, you will get to see like the official reveal that Game Freak and the Pokemon Company will do, and you'll get to see everything there. But if you don't care about that and you just want to kind of know what we're going into this year with the new Pokemon games, definitely keep on watching. Alright, so let's just start with some basic information about these games, and the first thing is when it comes to the names of the games, the names of the Gen 10 Pokemon games are Pokemon Winds and Pokemon Waves. Now, it's possible that they might use the singular version of these words instead of the plural version, so it could be like Pokemon Wind and Wave, which I think sounds a little bit nicer than Winds and Waves, but it's definitely going to have something to do with Winds and Waves, as you're going to see that the entire game is pretty much kind of based around this. And these games are also going to be exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2, so these are going to be the first Pokemon games that you're only going to get on the Switch 2. You're not going to be able to get them on the original Switch, and I think that makes a lot of sense too. Having a brand new generation to start off, a brand new console, it just makes perfect sense, and this is going to get so many Nintendo Switch 2s selling during the holidays when it comes out, because everybody is going to be buying a Switch 2 just to play these brand new Pokemon games, and we already did kind of see them try to get people to transition over with Pokemon Legends EA having a Switch 2 edition, so it was only a matter of time. Now the theme of these games is going to be infinity, which you guys are going to notice more as we start talking about like what the game is based around, but yeah, you're definitely going to see that it's a lot about infinite stuff and the theme of infinity. And then the director of these games is Shigeru Omori, and this has been the person who's been directing brand new generations of Pokemon since like Sun and Moon. So he's directed Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, and Scarlet and Violet, so that should kind of give you an idea of what his games are like. Now, the region for the Gen 10 Pokemon games is going to be based on the Southeast Asian islands, so you can see right here it is going to be another island type of region like the Alola region, but this information does come from a Shigeru Omori document in 2021, so it might have been altered a little bit or changed, but we do expect it to be like an island-based region for sure. It is going to have a lot of different islands that you're going to be able to go on, and if they were kind of planning this in 2021, it does seem like this game has been in development for a while. Now, there was actually a lot of lore that was written about this region, so I'm just going to kind of read it all to you here so that you can kind of hear what it's going to be like. It is kind of loosely translated, so it might not be completely accurate, but it does kind of give you an idea of the stuff that they've been thinking about when making these games. So it says right here, "This world has endured since ancient times, and it will continue into the future. Past generations have entrusted something to the future. We now receive that something and live on, entrusting it to the next generation. Driven by that unseen force, people are propelled forward. People, nature, and Pokemon are connected. What kind of world can we leave for the next generation? Is the world we have now truly something that we can entrust to the future? The winds and waves of the times, storms and whirlpools, the unseen force creates nature, brings forth abundance, and gives birth to peace. The unseen force destroys the environment, breeds pathogens, and spawns conflict. It's hard to call the modern world a good one. I feel sorry that this is the only world we can leave for our children. If that is the case, then at least I want them to acquire the strength to survive in this harsh world. What kind of world can we leave for the next generation? What should we pass on to them? This is a story of parental responsibility and children's rights endlessly passed down through every age. Play that continues infinitely, land that expands infinitely, evolution holding infinite potential." So from that right there, you can kind of get the idea of maybe some of like the motifs and the themes that could be about this game, and really kind of the stuff that the games are going to be trying to convey to us. So I do feel like it's a little bit interesting. I don't know how much they're really going to kind of go into this in terms of like the story of the games themselves, but these are kind of things that they were thinking about when developing the games and kind of the thoughts that they had. So maybe we are just going to kind of see stuff like this threaded into like the way that the game is being presented. So I do think that it could be pretty nice. Alright, in terms of the box legendaries, we of course have two of them, and the first one that we have here is the Storm legendary. So it says here, the Storm Pokemon. It is the role of an old man. It lives on an island that keeps people away. It possesses the power of the wind to properly guide humans and Pokemon. It accepts only those humans who have correctly raised the seed Pokemon. And then we have the other legendary, which is the Wave legendary, and it says here, the Wave Pokemon. It is the role of an old woman. It lives on an island that keeps people away. It possesses the power of the waves to properly guide humans and Pokemon. It accepts only those humans who have correctly raised the seed Pokemon. And I'm sure you were wondering, what did they mean by the seed Pokemon? And that's what you're going to see right here, as it says here, the seed Pokemon is a baby Pokemon of a seed species that can be found in resort areas. The seed Pokemon is an unevolved form. It is a rare sight in this land, and no one has ever seen its evolved form. When it travels to the island where the main legendary resides, it begins to evolve. Its evolved appearance is said to have infinite versions. You get the seed Pokemon at the start of your adventure, and you must raise it to a certain level to be able to enter the island for the main legendary Pokemon. The evolution for the seed Pokemon will be procedurally generated, including unique patterns for flowers and fractals, so all players will have a unique seed Pokemon evolution. And the seed Pokemon will revert to its default form when transferring it to future games or champions. It will only be procedurally generated inside Winds and Waves. So essentially, you're going to get like a little seed baby Pokemon at the start of your game, and I guess you're going to have to raise it to a certain level and then bring it to where the legendary Pokemon in the games reside. But it does make me kind of wonder, like, does this mean that we're going to have like the seed Pokemon in our party at all times so that it's gaining EXP, it's leveling up, or is it going to be something that kind of levels up alongside our team so we don't have to give one of our slots up for it? I hope that that's the case, or at least like maybe the experience just kind of gets like added added immediately as soon as you put it into your party or something. I do hope that it doesn't like force everyone to have this seed Pokemon along with our starter on our teams, but I'm sure that they've kind of thought about that. And what's really interesting is that it seems like that this seed Pokemon is going to have infinite evolutions, as you're going to be able to have different patterns and stuff that are going to be like randomly generated for it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Spinda, where like Spinda does have like different little patterns and stuff that can be generated, but I don't think it's completely random. I think there's just like a bunch of different options for it. This one, it seems like it is just going to be like infinite. Like there's just going to be completely different random patterns and stuff for this Pokemon. So that's really cool, but it does seem to have like a default form when you like transfer it to like Pokemon Champions or like Pokemon Home or something, which makes sense because how are they going to have like all of those infinite patterns and bring those over into the future games and stuff? So that makes sense that the infinite stuff and all of that would just be inside of Gen 10, but either way, this does sound really cool. Alright, let's talk a little bit about the start of the game and the introduction, as it mentions here that you start the adventure in a big tourist city, and they even have documents that specifically mention that they wanted to break away from the pattern of always starting the game in small towns, as that is something that we've pretty much always been used to in Pokemon games, is like with Pallet Town, New Bark Town, New Vema Town, Twin Leaf Town. They've always just been towns where you have your house, maybe like one or two other houses, maybe a Pokemon lab, and it's just very basic. But this is going to be a Pokemon game where you're going to start in a gigantic city, so it is going to be very different from traditional Pokemon games, so I think that that is going to be pretty cool. It says here that there is going to be like a little kind of mini thing that you're going to have to do where your protagonist is going to need to catch starter Pokemon that have escaped. This seems to be kind of a common thing that they're starting to do now with a lot of the newer Pokemon games, so that is going to be kind of, I guess, like your way of getting introduced to these starters. And then it also says here that a big resort hotel in the city was intended to serve like an MMO lobby where you can see other players, interact with them, and have quest boards, but it's possible that this may have been scrapped for being too ambitious. So you're going to kind of see as I talk a little bit more about these games that they really kind of wanted to incorporate MMO elements as well as have like a brand new generation of Pokemon, but it might have been a little bit too ambitious, so they might have had to kind of scrap some of those features. I still do think that there is going to be like a multiplayer component and having online stuff, because we already did even see that in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, where like you could invite people over to like your world and you could talk with them and do stuff. So I think that that aspect is probably still going to stay, but it seems like they might have wanted to do a little bit more. And we even have an image here of kind of like what the leaked image looks like for this big city. You can see here it's still very much in development, but you can kind of get an idea of like the skyscrapers and stuff with like really kind of how big that they're going to start this like opening area to be. Now, in terms of some Pokemon features, it says here that all Pokemon can be interacted with riding or touch features, but this may have been scrapped. And it says here that in terms of the riding looks to be like the Synchro Machine from the Indigo Disc DLC, where you control the Pokemon and the trainer is going to follow behind you with a Rotom scooter. So if you remember, in the Indigo Disc DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, they had something called the Synchro Machine, where you could basically turn into your Pokemon and then you would have full control of like how they're running, how they're moving, where they're going. And so it seems like that this might be an evolution on top of that, where you're basically going to be able to turn into any of the Pokemon that you have with you, and you're going to be able to control them and like move really quickly, and that's going to be like your way of traveling throughout the region. But then your trainer is going to be following behind you on this Rotom scooter. And it also says here that the Rotom scooter is going to be like the bicycle equivalent, so if you're just walking around as your trainer, you can probably spawn in the Rotom scooter whenever you want, and that's going to be like your bike where you can get from place to place pretty quickly. But it also says here that the Rotom scooter can adapt with your connected Pokemon's abilities, such as being able to fly or dive. So I'm assuming this means like if I connect it to like a Pidgeot, because the Pidgeot can fly, then the Rotom scooter trainer is also going to be like flying behind me, and you would be able to use it for like aerial traversal. But then if I connect it to like a Gyarados, you could probably use it to get across water, and maybe the Rotom scooter will like transform into like a surfboard or something like that. So that seems like this is going to be like the way of like traveling, and maybe kind of even like how HMs are going to work with like how you can get across water and stuff. So it could be pretty neat, and I'm assuming that these are probably just going to be like unlocked as you progress through the game. Like now your Rotom scooter can fly, now your Rotom scooter can surf and stuff like that. And we even have an image of kind of like a very early version of what this Rotom scooter is going to be like with the trainer on it. So you can kind of see here with like the handles on it, and it kind of looks like it's going to be like hovering behind you. So that seems to be what that's going to be like. Now, some information about Pokemon battles. Pokemon battles are going to be returning to the traditional turn-based battles. I know Pokemon Legends ZA introduced real-time action battles for the first time in a main series Pokemon game, and a lot of people, including myself, did really enjoy them. And I know some people were saying like this should be the future of Pokemon now moving forward. All Pokemon combat should be an evolution off of this, and they should try to make this even better. But I kept telling you guys, like, I feel like that this was just an experimental thing that they did only for Pokemon Legends ZA. Maybe it could come back to like a future Legends game, but there was no way that this was going to be like the future of all Pokemon combat. So yeah, we're going back to traditional turn-based battles, and it says here that they are going to be looking to be an evolution off of the Legends Arceus style, where multiple Pokemon can attack you all with their own health bars. So I'm guessing like as you're kind of just like running around the region, multiple Pokemon can kind of just jump at you, and you could be in like a 4v1. So I did kind of enjoy that aspect of Pokemon Legends Arceus, so I don't mind that being like evolved even further with these games. And then in terms of the gimmick, it says here, the new battle gimmick, Tenko Waza, roughly translates to weather moves. And I feel like with the games being called Winds and Waves, maybe like using the power of the winds and waves or something to do with the weather, it does kind of make sense that maybe there would be some type of weather-based gimmick. So I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be like, but it seems like that this is going to be kind of like the main battle gimmick that you're going to be able to do throughout the games. And then it says here that there is a pocket for Megastones in the backpack, but it's not confirmed if they will return or if this is a development placeholder. So it seems like that there is something for Megastones and being able to hold them. I of course would love for there to be Mega Evolutions inside of these games, but I don't really know for sure. I feel like they might want to kind of try to have more of the focus beyond that new gimmick with like the weather moves and stuff, but maybe it could be like a post-game thing with like Pokemon Sun and Moon where you get unlocked Mega Evolutions at the end of the game or something. That could be pretty nice too, but I don't know. I feel like then again they did also introduce so many new Mega Evolutions in Legends EA and the DLC, so to really have them come back and have even more of them, it would make a lot of people very happy, but I just don't really know. And then we also have an image here of kind of what the battles are going to look like and kind of like a very early version of the UI. So you can see here your moves are listed on the left side there with the different attacks that you have. And you can see here with like all the like Charizards that are kind of like jumping up on this person. So you can have like it be kind of similar to Pokemon Legends Arceus. But we also have a little bit about like what the gimmick looks like, where you can see right here, this Pikachu that's kind of moving is supposed to be kind of like what the weather gimmick is like, where the Pikachu model is getting very cloudy and stuff. I'm not exactly sure what it's supposed to represent or what these effects are going to be from these weather moves, but the Pikachu getting all bubbly and stuff, that seems to be like an early version of what these weather effects and weather moves are going to be doing. Alright, let's take a look at some of the main gameplay features that are going to be inside of these games. So the first thing that we have here is the gym adventure, and this seems to be just like your traditional going around the region and collecting all the gym badges from battling gym leaders. You also have the Weather Move Acquisition quest, and this to me sounds like it's going to be something to do with those weather moves and like the gimmick of the game. Maybe this is how you unlock new weather moves, or maybe this is how you upgrade them or do something more with your abilities. So it seems like that's going to be like its own entire like dedicated side thing. And then we also have MMO Raid Battle. This to me sounds like the multiplayer feature probably, where you can connect online, you can invite some of your friends and do like these raid battles that you've had since like Pokemon Sword and Shield, and also in Scarlet and Violet, where you and your friends and like other people online can team up. So that seems to be like the online component. Then we also have something called Pokemon Rescue, which I'm not really sure what this could be referring to. Maybe there's just going to be like certain Pokemon that need to be rescued. Maybe it could be like a side quest thing, or maybe like you're just going to find Pokemon that are going to be in danger or something as you're exploring throughout the region, and you can rescue them, and it's like another side activity that you can do. There's also going to be boss Pokemon, and I think it also mentioned that they're similar to like totem Pokemon. So these are going to be like boss Pokemon or Titan Pokemon, I'm guessing, from like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, where like you can team up and you have like those big Pokemon with the giant health bars that you have to take down. And then you also have something called Pokemon Survival, which I'm not sure what this could be. Maybe this is like a mini game, maybe it's about side quests or like another extra side activity that you can do. And then we also have something that's making me pretty excited called diving, which is that you're actually going to have the ability to go underwater and dive like how you could in like the Generation 3 game. So that's going to be pretty cool. I don't think that the entire region is going to be like you can just go into any water and dive. That would be kind of insane, but even just having like separate dive zones or areas that you can go underwater, that is just going to be pretty cool. And then also it says right here that the gyms and boss Pokemon are mixed together with a total of 18 challenges, one for each type, and clearing all 18 is going to allow you to challenge the champion. So this kind of reminds me of what they did with like Scarlet and Violet, where like if you like added up all of the little things that they made you do with like the gym battles, the Titan battles, and then also like the Team Star stuff, it did end up being like 18 things, I'm pretty sure. So this is kind of similar to that, I'm guessing, like where you're just gonna have a lot of stuff to do throughout the game. And then we also even have a leaked image here of what it seems like the underwater exploration is going to be like. And you can even see here the Luminion is like glowing with like the parts of it that are like supposed to be like lighting up. So that seems like it could be pretty cool. And this is of course an in development picture, so this could be even better maybe when we actually see the final version. So that does make me kind of excited. Alright, now for some unique details and cool things that are only going to be inside of these Gen 10 games. The first thing is that it says here, you will be able to beat the game without finishing all of the gyms or even catching the main legendary Pokemon, but you are going to need to do all of that if you want the true ending. So this is making me pretty excited, because if you can actually reach the credits of this game without having to do any of the gyms or the legendary or anything, that's making me very excited to see how speedruns of this game are going to be like, because I'm sure people are going to come up with some really crazy ways to basically reach the credits of this game. So that's actually really cool. And it says here, you can challenge the final boss immediately after gaining the ability to traverse the sea. So that is just super cool. And it really reminds me a lot of another game, which I'll talk about in a second. And then it says here that they also try to streamline the tutorial process. So I am hoping that that means that the tutorial is going to be much quicker, and it's going to be kind of faster to kind of get out of that and really just kind of have full freedom to do whatever you want. Because with the last island Pokemon game that we had, like that whole tutorial island in Pokemon Sun and Moon, a lot of people, including myself, didn't like it because it just drags on forever and it's very slow paced. So I'm hoping that the tutorial part of this game is going to be much better. I think that they did a pretty decent job of it in like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but then Legends EA took forever again. So I don't know, hopefully they can kind of get all of that fixed. And like I said, this really reminds me a lot of like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where once you kind of get past like that tutorial area with like the Great Sky Island or the Great Plateau, and you can kind of like dive down, then you have full freedom to go wherever you want. And it seems like they're trying to do that inside of this game too, where once you, I guess, have like the ability to traverse the sea and like travel around the sea and stuff, you're just going to be able to go to the final boss if you want to. So that's actually super cool. And traveling the sea and stuff, it really reminds me like this game is probably going to be very Wind Waker feeling, I'm guessing, where you're just going to have like this boat that you're going to be able to use. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the map in a second, but you're going to see like it's really going to just kind of feel like you're traveling like across like the winds and waves, and you're just going to be like exploring around the world and stuff. It seems like that this could be really fun, especially like having all of these different islands, and the fact that it's probably just going to be open world because it's going to be evolving from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This could be really special. Alright, now looking at some information about the area designs, it says here that GameFreak really wanted to tackle the jungle environment, which they haven't really done before in Pokemon games. And that is kind of true, that we've really had a lot of different things with like caves and forests and deserts and snow areas, but they've never really done anything with like an entire jungle. So it seems like that is something that they really want to try to make real inside of these Pokemon games. And then it also says here that there is going to be still like a tropical setting like Alola, because there is going to be a lot of different islands and stuff. So that is going to be pretty nice. I did really kind of enjoy that setting in Pokemon Sun and Moon. It was very colorful and it was very nice. So I am hoping that they can kind of keep that type of atmosphere with these games too. And then it says here that the islands are going to be continually generated and the region has infinite design. So this to me sounds very exciting, because this is actually really kind of something that we've never seen before, but it's also going back to that theme of infinity about these games. It's that it seems like some of the islands are actually just going to be like generated randomly as you're kind of playing through the game. And so this could actually be something where like for the first time, it could be like everybody's entire Pokemon game experience is going to be much different than somebody else's, because you might have different islands than what I have, and maybe the islands that I have that are generated are going to be different than yours and stuff. And that's really cool. It does kind of make me wonder how they're going to do like the Pokemon spawns. Like, is it just going to be like any island that gets spawned in this area is going to have this Pokemon, or do you have to get really lucky and have this island spawn to get like this really rare Pokemon or something like that? It could be really cool. I'm excited to see how they're going to go about it. And then it says here that the islands seem to be generated based on how trained your seed Pokemon is. So you guys remember that seed Pokemon I talked about earlier. So I'm guessing as like you progress throughout the game, the more you do, that's how you're going to have different islands and stuff that are going to be generated and different places that you can explore. And then it says here that the map and the scale is also going to be huge. And I already thought that the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet map was pretty nice. I thought that it was pretty big. There was a lot of areas to explore and stuff. So if the scale of this is going to be like you've got the entire ocean to kind of explore around and finding all these islands and stuff, this could really be like an insane Pokemon game. And we've even got some images right here. Like these are of course very early in development images, and you can kind of see like what they're trying to do here with some of the areas. This is looking very tropical still with like the colorful flowers and stuff. We've got an image here of like the jungle setting too. There is like an image here of Nemona in there, but that Nemona is just kind of like a testing model that they're using in development before adding like the new characters, but you can kind of see what they're trying to do with like the jungle environment. And then we also have like the actual entire map here too, where you can see right here, all of that blue with the water. Inside of these games, you're actually going to be able to traverse that. So it's not like you're just going to be taken from one area to another, like in Alola, where you just go from one island to another. This one, that all of that water, you're going to be able to go around it in a boat and stuff and explore and discover these islands and go to them and dock your ship and like find places to explore Pokemon and stuff. Like this could be really, really fun. I'm actually very excited to see what the gameplay and how everything is going to work. Alright, now in terms of the graphics and visuals, there's actually a brand new model for Pikachu, which I'll show you guys in a second, but there also seems to be new models for Charizard, Lumineon, and Machamp, which now seems to be implying that if it's not just Pikachu or Charizard or some of these other Pokemon, and they're doing it for like Pokemon like Lumineon too, then it seems like that these games might actually have completely new models or just heavily upgraded models from what we've been used to. And I already thought that the models in like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet were pretty nice, but if they're going to be upgraded even further, I can't wait to see how the Pokemon are going to look like inside of these games. And then it says here there's also going to be new fire and shadow rendering techniques for better visual effects. So maybe like your attack animations and stuff are going to look cooler too. That's pretty exciting. And then we have the insider Nate the Hate, which I'm sure some of you guys know that name. Nate the Hate is one of the most accurate leakers that we have when it comes to Nintendo leaks. He's gotten stuff correct in terms of like exactly when Nintendo Directs are going to happen, upcoming games and stuff. And he was talking a little bit in his like recent episode of his podcast about the Gen 10 Pokemon games. And he was saying that from conversations I've had, Gen 10 could be visually pleasing. And then he also said it might be the visual leap that Pokemon fans have been waiting for. And that's making me pretty excited too, because I think we can all agree that GameFreak definitely did struggle a little bit when it came to developing Pokemon games on the Nintendo Switch. There was definitely stuff that looked a little bit rough. They were definitely kind of getting used to it from having developed games on like the DS and 3DS for so long. So I feel like with all the experience that they had with the original Switch, hopefully now moving on to the Switch 2 with the brand new generation, they can definitely do much more and having much more access to like the power of the Switch 2 and everything too. And we've got some images here too, where you can see right here, here's kind of a little basic image of like some of like the new areas and stuff. You can kind of see like the fire on Charizard's tail. It's not kind of just like that really basic kind of pattern that we've had for the longest time, but it actually looks to be like a more realistic kind of flame. So that seems to be looking like it's going to look really nice, and it's going to be rendered very beautifully inside of the game. And then we also have some of the changes here, like we can see here with like the Machamp's eyes. It seems like they're adding more to them and stuff. So like it seems like they are updating the models for the Pokemon. And then here is the brand new model for Pikachu. It's kind of a little bit controversial. I've seen some people saying that they don't really like how rounded it's looking, like with its head and stuff. And you can see here, like the one on the left is obviously the Pikachu that we've had since like Pokemon X and Y, since we've moved to 3D. But this Pikachu is much more rounded and stuff. It seems like they really want to have a new design for it moving into Gen 10. Alright, now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the characters. So when it comes to the main character and the family that you're going to have, your protagonist is going to be 13 years old, and it says here that they live in a big city and their mother wins a trip in a lottery and are taken on a vacation. So I'm guessing this makes sense now with why you're going to start in like this giant city and stuff. You're probably going to have like this expensive hotel room or whatever because your mom won the lottery, and that's how you're basically starting in this city, and you're going to have like this big vacation to explore like this region and everything. And it says here your mother is going to be age 33. She lives in the city, works from home while raising 2 children, and she won the trip and is using this vacation to relax. And then you also have a baby, which is obviously going to be age 0, but the baby is going to be an infant who cannot walk yet, but by the end of the game, they are going to be able to walk and talk, symbolizing the future. And so we also have a couple of concept images of what the main character is going to look like. So here is the main character in terms of like the male version, and then we also have the female version from the Rotom scooter. I'm not sure if these are going to be like the exact final versions. These could just be concept arts and we could get completely different looking main characters, but this seems to be kind of the images that we have for how the trainers are going to look. Alright, but now talking about the evil team and like the antagonist organization that's going to be inside of these games, it says here that there's going to be something known as the Land Development Team, which I'm sure they're probably going to have like an actual name or like a company name inside of the games, but it says here that it's a for-hire group that destroys nature to expand the land for profit. They have no ideals, they just complain while working for their salaries. So it seems like the evil team for this is going to be kind of just like another like standard business or type of company, and they're going to be destroying a lot of nature. So we can see here with like how they're really trying to tackle like the jungle atmosphere and stuff with these games. Then maybe like the evil team is really going to be about like cutting down these trees and destroying these ecosystems for these Pokemon and stuff, and the game is really going to be about why destroying the environment and all of that is wrong, and maybe that could be like a big part of how the story and all of that is going to unfold. Now we also have some information about the professor, and so it says here the professor is going to be 21 years old, and he is going to be a nature guide working at a hotel. Known as the survival professor, he researches the relationship between weather and Pokemon. So once again, tying weather into this, the gimmick being something like weather moves, I'm guessing the professor is going to be talking much more about this and researching all of that, so that's just making a lot more sense to me now. It seems like weather is going to be a pretty big part about these games. And then it says here, he studies Pokemon that can become embodiments of weather itself. Although knowledgeable through books, his survival skills are inferior to his friend. And he also drives around in a car, so that's actually pretty neat too. If you can just kind of like drive up and like be wherever you are, that could be pretty neat. And we also have like this very early concept image of what the professor could look like. It's kind of funny how this is supposed to be a 21-year-old if he's got like this crazy beard, but this seems to be like a very early version, so it might not actually look like this, but that's kind of what we had in the files. Now there's also some information on some of the other characters that are going to be inside of the games. So the first one that we have here is our friend. So this is going to be a friend who's going to be the same age as the main character at age 13. And it says here, a local child living on the resort island, acts as a rival, knowledgeable about Pokemon and nature, becomes friends with the protagonist. There's two versions depending on which gender you choose for the main character, so it's going to be like an Urbane or Tawny type of thing, where depending on if you pick a male trainer, you're going to get the female friend. If you pick the female trainer, you're going to get the male friend. We also have a hotel chairman who's going to be 75 years old, and it says here, a chairman of a hotel group that owns many resorts nationwide. He originally sought to create resorts where people and Pokemon could coexist with nature, but after a certain incident implied to be his child was killed by a Pokemon, he began to push for more aggressive development and came to hate Pokemon. And then we also have the heir, and it says here the heir is the chairman's child, serves as kind of an executive to the organization. Though not stated outright, his older brother is already dead, and he's the second son or potentially adopted. He respects his father but is naive about the world. So this is definitely adding some nice, interesting kind of aspects to how the world and maybe the story could even be like, where it seems like this hotel chairman might even be like the hotel chairman of the hotel that you're going to be staying at and like where you start the game. And it seems like this guy might just be like really kind of despising Pokemon and not liking them after an incident really had the life of his own child taken away from a Pokemon. And it seems like he's going to have another child too, who's going to have to grow up with his older brother basically gone because of Pokemon, and maybe he's also going to be kind of questioning how Pokemon are too. So this could be like planting the seeds for a pretty interesting plot, and it does make me kind of interested to see where they could go with this. And finally, the last thing that I have here is just some information about the development of the games, and also some extra things that I didn't really know exactly where to add. So the first thing is that the codename of the Gen 10 Pokemon games is codename Gaia, and I'm pretty sure Gaia means Earth, and just having all of these different islands with the land to explore, and these big like expansive seas and all the water and stuff, I think that it feels kind of fitting. The budget for the Gen 10 Pokemon games is about 3 billion yen, which approximately translates to 19,400,000 US dollars. So this is actually one of the more expensive new generations that they've had with Pokemon. So I am hoping that they are taking it more seriously, and it is like the very important Generation X going into double digits Gen 10 for the 30th anniversary. So I am hoping that this one is a little bit more special than some of the other ones. And with that, it says here that it's still using the same engine that GameFreak has had since Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but with significant improvements to the physics simulations and lighting. And we actually have a little clip of it here too, which I'll show you guys, where you can kind of see the way that the water is moving in this clip, and it does seem to look kind of nice. And we can even see kind of like the underwater with like the Dondozo here and stuff. And I think that like this is a very early version of the game, and if it's still looking like this, it still looks kind of decent. So to have it like be fully polished and like having the final version, it actually could look pretty nice. And this might be one of the few times I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing how this Pokemon game is going to look, especially on a brand new system with the Switch 2. So hopefully it does look really nice. And something really exciting is that this Pokemon game might actually finally be implementing voice acting, which has been so overdue because there's so many Pokemon scenes now that we have with like those cutscenes where we see like the characters moving their mouths and talking and stuff, but like there's no audio coming out and it just looks so awkward. And I've always said, like, I don't need every single bit of dialogue to be voiced, but especially like those important story cutscenes with the important characters, I feel like having some voice acting there, it just makes a lot of sense. And they don't need to do every single language, just having English and Japanese, which is what a lot of like games do anyway, it would be perfectly fine. Now, it also says here that before deciding on a region with like Southeast Asia, they were also thinking of the Gen 10 setting to be either Canada, Greece, Scandinavia, or even the west coast of North America. They're attempting to mix open world and MMO elements, but this might have been a little bit too ambitious for them. But it seems like they really wanted this to be like an online type of game too, with like playing with your friends and multiplayer and all of that, while also still being like a really big open world game that's going to be an evolution from Scarlet and Violet. I guess we'll just have to see the final version to kind of figure out how close they were to that vision. And then it says here that there was also another codename with Naya for the MMO gameplay, where players were going to be able to like upload the islands that they discovered to servers and play with others. I don't know if that's still going to be a thing, but with how like it seems like the islands are just going to be like randomly generated and stuff, like if you could discover an island and then like have your friends be able to come to it and you can all catch rare Pokemon together and stuff, that would be so cool. And then finally, this should be a given, but I think everybody is expecting there is going to be DLC coming in 2027, because why wouldn't there be? Every single time we have a new generation now, there's always DLC coming the next year after. So yeah, next year in 2027, instead of having a brand new Pokemon game, we're probably just going to be getting DLC expansions to Pokemon Winds and Waves. But with that, there you go guys, that is pretty much every single detail that we know about the upcoming Generation 10 Pokemon games on the Nintendo Switch 2 with Pokemon Winds and Waves. And it's only a matter of time now before we get that Pokemon Presents in just a few weeks, where we finally get to see them officially unveiled. But yeah, if anybody is wondering about the Gen 10 Pokemon games and the info about them, definitely send them this video, because it does really compile together everything, and it took me a lot of time to really compile all that information, find it for myself, put it together inside of this video, so I would really appreciate it. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. I'm definitely gonna have some more videos talking about Pokemon, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Comment down below and let me know what you think about all of this. Are you excited for Pokemon Winds and Waves? How are you feeling about all this information? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. But if you don't have anything to say about it, just comment your favorite emoji down below for some engagement. I would really appreciate it. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.